Joining me now to break all this down, Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. He's in Milwaukee, and it's great to have him on. He's also senior advisor to WeBuildTheWall.us. Hey, Sheriff Clarke, great to have you, sir.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be on with you, and hello once again to your listeners.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm very sensitive to people dying. No American wants to see this level of carnage every day from people dying from this coronavirus, and we want to be sure that we're doing our part in social distancing and following the guidelines, sheltering in place, all that stuff to mitigate this. But let me ask you something. If we don't open this economy up, the economic disaster is going to far outweigh 100,000 people dying from this virus. Do you agree or not?
I agree wholeheartedly. Look, we're at the precipice, I believe. This economy, and we say this, we keep saying it week after week, that it's got to get started, but it's falling further into the abyss. We're still being led by germ doctors, okay, who know nothing about the economy.
Right.
This economy is suffering great damage, and it's going to take a long time. Economies don't work on a switch. You don't just flip a switch and say, okay, America, get back to work, and everything will be like it was before that. It's going to take time. I hear Nancy Pelosi is already talking about another multi-trillion-dollar stimulus bill, and the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has indicated he's interested in it. It's not how economies work by just flooding this money into it. Economies work by goods, products, and services being produced by workers. Worker activity, market activity is how economies work. And so until we put people back to work, now you got all these people on unemployment. Pelosi's talking about extending unemployment. She wants to keep those people on unemployment so that it's very hard for the president to rebuild America, and that's what's going to have to happen.
Sheriff, she wants to keep them on unemployment through November. Why? Because then they're dependent on the government, and they need additional unemployment, and who is going to give it to them? Her, Biden, whomever. I mean, if the economy goes back to work in April, and it comes as the president said, and we come firing back, and we can get these businesses back open, and people go back to work, and they get off unemployment, and they have a great summer, and business starts to go up, they can't win. They will get crushed in November. All of them will get crushed. Spanberger, Loria, the whole bunch of them, they'll get crushed. And they know that. So the best way that they can grab power is by collapsing the economy into a calamity and a crisis. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're right. And, if there's a crisis right now, it's not a COVID-19 crisis. It's a crisis of confidence in America. We've been led astray by the people that we really shouldn't have listened to. And as fast as President Trump acted in trying to get his arms around this pandemic, he's going to have to act just as fast to rescue America as we knew it. And I don't know if it's going to return to as we knew it, but we can rebuild this. We've had to do it before at certain periods of time in this country. But, the numbers are off. We were led by models probably parallel to the climate change models. They're all junk. The numbers are synthetic. We haven't seen this surge. The health infrastructure or whatever is not overwhelmed. And we're finding all this out and drip, 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 day after day after day. The president he's got to channel his inner Churchill and declare that, hey, we're getting this thing going. He's going to take a lot of flack. Anybody who mentions anything to the contrary other than the prevailing orthodoxy that, the end is near for humanity, gets crushed, gets silenced like I have, like you have. Other doctors, people smarter than me, medical doctors and other scientists, they don't all agree with this Fauci character. And I'm done listening to Fauci. I do all my reading on competing narratives, competing evidence, so that I get both sides. We're already getting the one side jammed down our throats 24/7.
He's the Grim Reaper. I mean, look, he's the Grim Reaper standing up there telling us I was done with him when he made the asinine, moronic statement when they said to him, well, bending the curve down, like, when can we get back to work? When is it? What's the metric? Well, when there's 0 deaths and 0 contagion. Like, when the hell will that be, 2025? I mean, that answer to me just showed me the guy is like completely out there. I don't know what his political leanings are, and I don't care. But he is the Grim Reaper. Everything is bad. Everybody's going to die, and we can't open the economy up until 2025 when there is no country remaining. I mean, these are the asinine statements he makes, and so I lost total interest in him. He has no idea of how to balance. Look, you have to balance the economic fallout of shutting down production. This is what we've done. People say, oh, we've shut down the economy. You have shut down production. I mean, you came on the show, Sheriff, and the first thing you said is nobody is producing anything. Well, if you don't produce something, you eventually collapse.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this curve because this curve is false anyway, and I've been doing some reading on that myself as well. And in order to deal with the curve, and, this flattening the curve just became a platitude. It means nothing, but it sounds smart. But in order to deal with a curve the way they're talking about it, my understanding is you have to have a seed point, and a seed point has to be as close as possible to the beginning. And we don't know. Some believe medical experts believe this may have started last fall, October, November, in the United States. So if they planted the seed at the wrong spot, if they did it in February or March, and this thing started in October or November, the curve is going to be false. That's why I said the numbers are synthetic. The numbers are corrupted. The number of people who have died that they're saying died from COVID-19 is corrupted. It's not true. People with other ailments died of that. They may have had traces of the COVID-19 virus in them, but that didn't kill them. It was those underlying conditions. So we're fed all this fear, this sensation-driven media, doom and gloom. Oh, more people. Every morning I wake up and I say, hey, they can't make this any worse. And that's rule number one in crisis management, by the way. Don't make it worse. Well, they made it worse. This is a disaster right now. And every day we wake up, oh, so-and-so died. Oh, so-and-so died of COVID. You notice they've had to switch because they got caught, John. They don't say died of COVID-19. They say died of complications of COVID-19 because they didn't die of COVID-19. But then they're being marked as such, and that's added to the total. So we look every day, oh, now it's 2,500. Oh, now the United States leads the world in terms of coronavirus deaths. No, we don't. No, we don't. It'll be a long time before we can sort this out. We're going to have time to sort this out. And I don't mean in terms of getting the economy going. I mean in terms of how did we screw this damn thing up?
One of the things that you just said is that the number of deaths reported and attributed to coronavirus is not altogether accurate because anybody who dies that had a trace of the virus is put in that number. And as we know, 7,900 Americans die every day. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the way God set up life. And Curtis Ellis just texted in and said there will be no deaths on the second coming of Jesus Christ. I mean, that's the day there'll be no deaths. I mean, so there's always going to be deaths, right? 7,900. So what's happened now is you could be dying of pneumonia, old age, anything. You get a trace of the virus that's in your system. Your time was up anyway, but now it's attributed to the virus. So the numbers are not completely accurate because what you should be looking at is you are going to be fine. You got the virus and then you died as a result of the virus, right? So there's no really, I guess, to measure that. But just the other day, we had Fauci up there, and he is the Grim Reaper. We had Fauci up there saying up to 240,000 Americans could die from the virus exclusively. That's even if we maintain social distancing. Well, 250,000 people, I mean, everybody got, okay, this is bad. I mean, wow, we might have to shut down the economy till May, June, July, September, whatever it is that they're saying, 250,000. That was a week ago. Here it is Wednesday. 5 days later, they're revising this down to 60 to 70,000. How do you go from 250,000 to 70,000 in 3 days?
Well, I don't even believe the 60 to 70,000. I don't know, but I don't believe that because I don't believe anything coming out of these people's mouths anymore. And the reason I don't believe it, John, is because I've been reading a lot of the competing evidence, the competing opinions from the medical community on this. Not all doctors are on board with what Fauci and Birx are saying. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are. And so I'm just saying, it's not a matter of being right here. It's about, getting these people together, coming up with some consensus, in terms of what we should do, what we can do to deal with the spread of this thing, and not just one size fits all. That crap doesn't work, and that's why I said they've taken a crisis and they violated rule number one, and that's don't make it worse. They turned this thing into a disaster now. I don't know how we come out of this, because as soon as, and the president's been trying, all right, President Trump has been planting that seed out there of, hey, we got to get this economy going. Hey, we got to start putting America back to work. And every time he does, the New York Times and CNN and that idiot Jim Acosta and everybody else starts accusing him of being insensitive and worrying more about the economy than about this health crisis. And all it is a political smear. It's a political attack. But at some point, he's going to have to beat it back. I don't know when. That's a decision he has to make. But the further this economy stays turned off, the more damage that's going to result.
Define the damage.
Define the damage?
Yeah.
Have you seen the unemployment numbers?
Yeah.
You know, I think unemployment claims were up to 10 million. You can't turn that back on. You know, a lot of these businesses, they'll never be able to open again, John. That's the thing.
Right.
I see the damage. Some of this damage is irreversible. There are business people who are saying, I'll never be able to open again. My business is ruined. How do you turn that back on? Where are these people going to go back to work, John? Many of these people, especially in the service industry. That's probably been hit the hardest. The service industry has been completely turned off, at least in Wisconsin it is, with restaurants and bars and beauty salons and all these others that have been declared non-essential businesses. No, every business is essential in the United States of America. And if we wouldn't have gone to this one-size-fits-all and this copycat Me Too by governor after governor, when one state does something, the governor of the state next door says, well, I can do you one better. And the next thing you know, there's this race to the bottom. That's the damage I'm talking about. And, you know, I guess we'll, when we pick through the ruin here and we realize the damage we've done, we will all look at ourselves and we'll have to ask ourselves, how did we allow this to happen?
Exactly. Spot on. How did we sit around and let politicians and the media and the mainstream media and the liars and the fake news and the politicians, how did we sit around and let them destroy our livelihood, our homes, our families, our world? You know what it reminds me of? I read a story. My family was from Berlin. I remember reading stories written in handwritten notes by family members. And we had members of the family that were in the bunkers in Berlin. They had those bunkers. They were in there, Sheriff, for months, not days or weeks, months they were in there. And I remember reading a note, which was one of my great aunts who came out, got into the light, and looked around and saw nothing but burned out Hubble and said, how did this happen? I mean, that's what's going to happen. You're going to go out one day, and there'll be no jobs, no economy, food lines, and you're going to say to yourself, how the hell did this happen? How did we allow this to happen? That's an analogy, I think, that is scary to people.
Well, I think, I believe when all is said and done, we'll hang our head in shame. And the American people bear some of the responsibility here. It isn't just the politicians, because we allowed them to do this to us. We developed this. We got bamboozled, John, with this fear-mongering. We got hoodwinked in terms of this, death and destruction. And we went along and we developed this do something, do anything mindset, and we let government do anything they want because, they're the experts. They're the experts. Well, no, they're not experts, all right? They're human beings. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and I.
Right,
they may have a little more education, but I'll tell you what, if these people are as educated as they claim to be, I think they're over-credentialed.
You're right, Sheriff. I tell you what, you're spot on. And there's a new mantra growing in the country right now that we have to take the economic situation, the economic destruction, the lives that are going to go down the drain as a result of shutting off production and the economy. And we have to put that model right up alongside the virus model. Here's how many people died from the virus. This is how many people are dying today from stress, heart attack, alcoholism, because they don't have a job and they don't have anything back to. Until we get those numbers straight, let me read a couple of texts here. You've inspired some people. Christine in Washington, D.C. says the sheriff is right. This is managed decline. Those who are not quivering in fear in their homes, those who want to get back to work are losing friendships, being called killers and being reported on social media. Stephen Chester says, Sheriff Clarke is spot on. The mainstream media is imploding the numbers to make the crisis look worse than it really is. We'll never know the truth about the virus ever, and we're letting the government just do whatever they please without standing up. Then let me get to one more. Jeremy in Chesapeake says, I want to share this with the sheriff. This is Chesapeake, Virginia. My wife already has anxiety issues. She is also high risk. She watches the news and Facebook videos, all of them gloom and doom, which in turn makes her conditions worse, which have nothing to do with the virus. That's the problem.
Shameful.
It's shameful what we're doing here. Absolutely shameful. And everybody is scared to stand up to the politicians, the Faucis of the world, the mainstream corrupt fake news media, social media. We're all afraid because we're going to get shamed. And we're beaten into submission that we have to do exactly what the governments and basically now the politicians tell us to do. We have to comply or we be arrested. What does that sound like?
Yeah, it sounds like a third world dictatorship is what it sounds. Not even a third world. I mean, you can look at China and you could look at North Korea and other instances of that sort of manipulation, because right now, that's why I use those terms, hoodwinked and bamboozled. We're being manipulated. This is data manipulation. It's mind manipulation. And I'm a little disappointed that the American people have gotten this soft, John. That, they won't, after a while, whenever you have something like this, obviously, you lose your footing, you lose your balance, but then you right yourself, and then you got to go straight forward, and you got to start to think, for heaven's sakes. Let's think. We're all just being led. And I'm encouraging people, think for yourself, which is why I just continue to read the competing evidence, the competing opinion as to what's going on, because I've heard enough of the other garbage on the other side. And so I want a balance. All right. I want, I'm listening. You can't get away from that side, but I want some balance. You know why? It gives me perspective. It gives me perspective about, my own self, what I can do. I've taken the precautions. I've washed my hands more than I've done anything else. And it's social distancing. That's another cliche. All right. Social distancing was tried during, and I'm not saying we shouldn't try it, but it was tried during the Spanish flu, and it still resulted in 650,000 American deaths. So if people think this social distancing thing is new, it's not new. I think washing your hands, and this is based on what doctors say early on in this, the doctors who didn't lose their head, they said, just wash your hands. Just keep washing your hands.
Wash your hands and don't touch your face, right? Those are the two things.
There you go.
Wash your hands and don't touch your face. And if you touch a surface, wash your hands immediately before you touch your face. Chances are you're not going to get it. Sheriff Clarke, we're out of time. Thank you for your dose of reality today.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it.